Hey, Jeff, thanks so much for being on HTR. This is where we talk about the business of remodeling. Lately, we've been talking about our process. Now, if you had the time, since you're our chief operations officer, I would have you on every episode because you really wrote the book on this. But today, I would just want to ask you about our PBA, the Preliminary Building Agreement. What is a PBA and how does it work?
Sure. So our PBA is basically the second big step in our process. John goes out and does an initial cost range, and that gives the client an idea of where their project would fall. But we really can't move on to do any further pricing without plans, which is often the main thing that is part of the preliminary building agreement. So essentially it's a design build agreement. Unlike some design build agreements, it's not part of the contract price. It's separate for us. We also include all testing that needs to be done. A lot of the older homes need asbestos and lead testing, and that can be a big cost that has to get added, and we don't want to wait until after the contract's signed to do that testing. I just reviewed a project this morning. I think the asbestos was almost $20,000. So that would be a big add to drop on somebody after they'd already leveraged the amount of money they could do to build their project. The biggest part, though, is the plans. We do about 80% of the plans in-house, and that allows us to help the client control the budget, control the process. When we've worked with architects, we've waited up to 3 months for revisions on plans, and we can normally do plans within the day. Sometimes it's a little longer than that, but as we're reaching the final pricing and dialing in details, we might do a half dozen revisions in a week. The final part of the preliminary building agreement is the zoning that we have to do. Sometimes if there's sewer or septic work on the site, we have to get an environmental test done, and that's something that with some of the local counties could take 2 months to get done. So having that as part of that PBA agreement allows us to get that done before we're ready to start work. The other thing we have to do here locally in Athens is a demo review where the project has to go to a commissioner. They have to approve it, and then it goes back to zoning. And that's something that the commissioner can sit on for, I believe it's 45 days. We've only had that happen one time, but that can really throw a project off if you're ready to go, and then the commissioner sits on it.
There was a time before we had our PBA.
Mm-hmm.
And what problems did we solve working with that PBA?
So there was a couple of problems we were trying to solve. One was our time. We were giving away a lot of our time for free. We had one client who was a repeat client for us, and we gave her a little bit more leeway than we probably would have other people. But we looked at a half dozen different houses for her. And for each of those, we wrote a pretty detailed estimate. We actually did plans for several of them, and that was hours and hours and hours of work, days in some cases, with no compensation. And you just can't run a business like that. And the other problem we have is if we don't have that step between the initial cost and the final cost, we end up missing a lot of things. By taking the time to do this PBA agreement, it allows us to slow things down and really look at things. And with the clients, sometimes they really appreciate that extra time to make decisions, not in a rush and not in the fly. When we're on site, we make all of our selections beforehand, if possible. If we're wanting to make those selections when the subcontractor needs the materials, the client is going to be put in such a high pressure situation that they're going to become stressed, we'll become stressed. And that's what we were finding. And so for them, they get to make all these decisions on paper at their speed. We don't tell them, oh, you have to be done with this in 3 weeks. We tell them, these are the decisions you need to make. We'll guide you through them, but you can make them at your own pace. Then we put it all together. And then when we go to the contract, we have a solid contract that we're really 100% confident in. The things that we don't know, the two things I tell clients are, we might find rot, when we start demo, because we never know what's behind a wall. And we might find some bad soil in the yard if we start digging for footings. Those are the two unknowns on our end. But most of the other unknowns we've already gone through in that early process.
That makes sense. And it's a nominal fee to get through this step, but it's before your contract. So you're not really obligated to stick around. You can really learn from your PBA process, get everything you need out of it, and then still have a chance to determine the feasibility of the project, if it fits your budget, if you really want to go through with it. And I think that has been a pleasant surprise how it's received. You have any trouble selling a PBA?
Not really. In fact, that's one of the things I had somebody say to me a few months ago. They'd like to be a salesman for JOMA. And I said, well, we don't really have salesmen because the process kind of sells itself. We just present information to them. We're not trying to sell a PBA. If they want to do it, great. If they don't want to do it, great. We think it's a really useful thing to do. And we've had cases where especially when we were doing new construction type work, where we've gone through all the plans, we've gone through all the pricing and all the selections, and at the end the client decided, you know what, it's a little too much for me. But instead of spending $400,000, they spent $4,000. And they walk away with a set of plans that maybe they can use in the future.
Exactly. They can come back and they don't have to do this sort of walk of shame of, sorry, I used up your time. They have fully compensated us for it, and then they can return or call us about a bathroom that was unrelated or something like that.
And that is really common that we'll have clients do that. We've even had over the past year as people have, had various concerns about whether their job was secure or not. People have put jobs on hold and then come back to their preliminary building agreement, and all we have to do is just rerun the numbers real quick. But we've done all that legwork up front. And the other thing it does is it gives our production team a better roadmap of what they need to do when they get on site. Yeah. So they're not running blind. They have plans that we've done in-house. We can give our in-house teams 3D models. We can give our clients 3D models to help visualize things. Sometimes I actually met with a couple yesterday, and the woman said that, we're talking about plans, and she's like, I can't really visualize it. And I said, well, I can take some 3D camera shots to make it look like you're standing in your kitchen, and that'll help you visualize it. And that helps us get closer to a plan, and then we push forward into selections after that.
Oh, that's awesome. We were just talking about visioning with John, and the tools that are coming out are really great. Now, the PBA, one of my favorite things is it's well-defined. It's very tangible. There's a list of kind of a la carte items. So I'll put that in the description, a copy of our PBA and the process document, which discusses the PBA. And that way people can explore really what it means. And that was perfect information, I think. That was a great discussion about the PBA. Make sure to view all of our HTR videos on YouTube, subscribe. You can join our Facebook group or follow us on Facebook at JOMA Construction, or even find our HTR shorts on Instagram. We put this stuff everywhere. And Jeff, we'll have to have you back on. PBA is a big topic. I think we have to start picking it apart from here. So we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Mackenzie.